Welcome to the Business Extra. I'm Mustafa Al-Rawi, the National's Assistant Editor-in-Chief. Kelsey Warner, how are you?
Good to be here.
Good to be here too. We're going to be talking about Airmageddon, travel chaos.
Airmageddon, yeah, travel chaos. Well, a tale of two travel stories, really. One regionally, which is slightly brighter, and I think kind of what's playing out, what we're seeing in European and American skies, which is seemingly slightly more chaotic these days.
Well, we may have all seen the pictures of queues in airports, baggage piling up, flights cancelled. Initially started in Europe, particularly short haul. Now it's in the US, domestic flights. As you said, Emirates and Etihad, other regional airlines have actually been doing okay during this difficult period. And why is it difficult? Because demand has shot back.
Yeah, we're headed into peak summer.
And capacity isn't necessarily where it would be. So in a moment, we're going to talk to an expert on this, which is the National's aviation correspondent, Dina Kamil. But before we do that, please do subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, ring that bell. Dina Kamil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
So we spoke actually about a year ago before you went to the IATA, the industry conference in Boston. And at that time, it was 2021. They were coming out of the pandemic. And of course, the aviation industry was hit harder than most, perhaps, maybe the hardest, when planes were literally grounded around the world. And now, a year later, you've just been to Doha for IATA's annual meeting as well, where I think you were telling me before we started recording, the mood was much more upbeat than last year.
That's right. I mean, the industry executives certainly seem to be a lot more optimistic this year at the IATA gathering that happened in Doha just last month. The vibe is definitely a lot more energetic, a lot more optimistic. They're looking at a brighter recovery with profitability starting to come back in 2023. Narrower losses predicted for 2022. So definitely, and demand coming back with this huge surge. So this is all definitely good news for the industry, but it is now grappling with a different set of challenges after, 2 years of the COVID disaster. So now...
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about, vibe on the ground, the CEOs are all positive, feeling cheerful. The scenes at airports that Mustafa just described are kind of in contrast to that feeling. But I also want to ask so they're feeling positive, but a year ago we're talking to you about the non-return of the business traveler or the new normal, this shift to remote and less travel, but demand is just surging back. So how are they balancing this? Are they balancing it well?
So they're definitely at a point in their operations where they're starting to ramp up, right? They're adding more planes back to the fleet. They're trying to hire more people as fast as they can to meet that giant jump in demand. The travel restrictions are quickly falling away around the world. People, sick of lockdowns for 2 years, want to travel again. The summer people are making travel plans. Where are we going? So there's that surge in demand on one side, but the supply is not able to keep up on the airline side. And what that means is there's a huge shortage of staff. We're up to a point where it's actually hurting airlines' ability to meet this incredible increase in demand. So what's happening is, a lot of the airlines let go of staff during COVID because, there wasn't enough airplanes flying. A lot of these aviation workers then didn't want to come back to the industry. They'd found work elsewhere, and other industries, work that offered them a lot more flexibility, a lot more relaxed hours, and some of them just got put off by the uncertainty and the ups and downs of the aviation industry, and just didn't want to come back. So airlines are now facing a smaller pool of talent, which is compounded by the fact that it takes a really long time for them not just to recruit staff, but also to train them. So this is very specialized work. If we're talking about pilots, we're talking about, crew. We're talking also about it takes a lot of time to get security clearances, to get background checks done. So all of this is slowing down the training and recruitment process. It's slowing down the number of people that are able to staff, everything from the aircraft to baggage handling and everything in between. So this is really constraining airlines' capacity and their ability to meet demand. And that's why one of the reasons we're also seeing such high airfare.
And also it's a reason why there's no quick fix to this. Obviously, demand can be seasonal. We'll see, the peaks over summer, then it'll quieten down a bit, and then sort of Christmas and New Year it'll pick up again, and hopefully things will ease. But the picture, and we come away from Europe and the US where things are particularly strained in terms of capacity, unable to meet demand, and I think the only solution is going to be to literally cancel flights in advance and not to have the chaos we're seeing in the airport. So as you said just there, probably airfares will get higher, and that'll be the compound of that problem. But in this region, in the Middle East and the Gulf in particular, they're recruiting, they're hiring people, they're able to be more competitive. The planes are brand new that they're bringing on. I mean, most recently, Etihad flew its A350 to New York. So can Gulf Airlines grow in isolation of bigger problems in other regions with their competitors in Europe and the US or other airlines and airports? Or will they need the entire industry to be able to get back on track for them to also meet all their plans?
So we have to remember that the Gulf Airlines are also competing for the same very limited pool of talent of aviation workers that all the other airlines are trying to get a piece of. So what's happening here is we've talked to airlines like Etihad Airways. We've talked to Tim Clark, the president of Emirates Airlines, to ask about how they were dealing with this issue in contrast with the chaos that we're seeing in Europe and the US. And what they've done is both airlines have started this process fairly early. So they were able to get the gist or able to forecast that demand is starting to pick up, the recovery is starting to pick up. They saw the signs of this happening early on. So back in about October, the end of last year, they actually started their recruitment campaigns globally for cabin crew. They started to call back some of the pilots that they had let go during the pandemic, as everybody else had. And they were able to recruit some of these alumni pilots. So we've talked to Tim Clark at Emirates who said they've been so busy, recruiting 40, 50 pilots a month that their training facilities are up to capacity. They're maxed out. Similarly, the National went to visit Etihad's cabin crew training facility, where they've just got new people coming in every week from these global recruitment drives they've been holding. The next few weeks, they're going to be going to countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Germany, Italy, Turkey, Thailand, to recruit more crew. So starting early and tapping the talent that they had before, that also helps with the training side of things, because they've already trained them before. This is sort of retraining in the same capacity. So they're able to really get a head start on this issue.
I just want to say, so much of the story you're telling is a hiring story, but we're also in the midst of record high energy prices, record high oil prices, and affordability is becoming a real issue for travelers as ticket prices, as you mentioned earlier, have been going up. How much can the industry stand in terms of these rising ticket prices, and how do we expand this narrative a bit more beyond it being a hiring story? What are energy prices kind of inflicting pain? Is that something you heard at IATA last month?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was a lot of chatter at IATA about this perfect storm that's being that's circling the industry right now, where you've got this massive jump in jet fuel prices. And remember, jet fuel is the single biggest cost of an airline. So depending on the size of its fleet and so on, it could be up to 25% of its total cost. So that's substantial. Labor costs are the second biggest cost item, operational costs for an airline. So those two are really weighing heavily on airlines. There's the fact that you've got rising interest rates, weaker economic activity, a weaker global economy, and these are all causing a lot of pressure for airlines. And when we talk to the head of IATA, Mr. Willie Walsh, who's also ex-head of IAG, he said that, yes, it is a perfect storm. These are difficult circumstances, but that the industry will get through it. This is, for the industry, quote unquote, business as usual compared to...
At least they're back in the skies.
Right.
Is that the new high water mark?
Compared to the last 2 years of the real, the real pain and suffering that they went through. We're talking about grounded fleets and barely any flying. So this for them is something that they've faced before and that they will handle again as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, I find it interesting that despite all the challenges out there, that Willie Walsh and other execs are feeling quite optimistic about things. So if we move sort of more medium term and long term, do they? You said that profitability back in 2023, but also growth. Is that what they're expecting?
Definitely, yeah. They're expecting the industry to start, as you say, incurring profits in 2023, which is, I'm sure, a very big and welcome relief. Growth starting out from 2024 onwards, before things get back to pre-pandemic levels. But it's an uphill climb. Really, because you've got to think about these higher costs because of jet fuel, because of interest rates, because of labor costs. It certainly doesn't come easy.
So, Dina, I just want to ask you, IATA is ultimately an industry body working in the interest of the airlines. So I want to ask about the plight of the traveler and just when can, air traffic, air passengers expect for this situation to get better in light of this rather rosy picture you're painting from the airlines as to growth and profitability?
That's a great question. As you say, IATA is a lobby body for airlines. And when really pinned down on that question of, the pain that the consumers are facing during the peak summer travel season, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, Willie Walsh was very clearly saying, look, this is a problem that the industry is working on. Might take, a few weeks or a few months to get on top of, but, they're working as hard as they can to get there. And Tim Clark, the president of Emirates Airlines, he was also saying that the logistical and operational problems that the aviation industry is seeing is not unique to aviation alone. It's, other industries are also facing shortages, whether it's the automotive industry or others. With aviation, it becomes a lot more visible because this is very much consumer-oriented, consumer-facing industry. It's something that's very integral to a lot of people's lives, and that's why it's highlighted a lot more, and it's a lot more visible, but definitely more painful on the consumer side to be on the receiving end of losing your bag or queuing for hours or facing delayed or canceled flights in the last minute. It's not great and it's frustrating. The airlines say that they're working as hard as they can on this. So they're juggling that sort of consumer frustration on one end. But a lot of airlines in Europe are also facing, pilot strikes and worker strikes over various things, such as wages and other grievances. So they're kind of handling things from from both sides. It's a tough spot to be in.
Dina Kamel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Until the next time.
That's it for today. Kelsey Warner, thank you.
Good to be here.
All that remains to thank our production team and you all for being with us. Goodbye.